Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever or whenever you are. Welcome to the MyHeritage webinar series. Today, the face of MyHeritage and my good friend Daniel Horowitz is with us for a topic that we all enjoy, the good news about historical newspapers. Just this last week, I had some really good news about an ancestor of mine in the newspapers, so I'm already a believer, and I'm excited to learn even more here from Daniel. Daniel's live at MyHeritage headquarters in Tel Aviv, Israel, and you are live from these 22 countries today. It's been fun watching or reading from you here in the pre-webinar chat, telling us how warm or cold it is where you are. Thanks everyone for sharing part of your day with us. Well, many of you know him well, but in case you're new here, I want to tell you just a little bit about Daniel Horowitz. Daniel's a genealogy expert at MyHeritage and provides key contributions liaising with genealogy societies, bloggers, and media, as well as lecturing and attending conferences around the world. If you're coming to Roots Tech, be sure and come and say hi to Daniel. He's usually there. Dedicated to genealogy since 1986. He was the teacher and the study guide editor of the family history project Searching for My Roots in Venezuela for 15 years. Daniel's involved in several crowdsourced digitization and transcription projects and holds a board-level position at the Israel Genealogy Research Association. Please put together your virtual hands and let's give Daniel Horowitz a nice warm webinar. Welcome, Daniel. How are you? And welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff. As always, I am great, especially because I have one more opportunity for being here with you.
Yes.
And with everybody, we're counting more than 360 people now. And I'm pretty sure some latecomers will come. And yes, to spread the good news about historical newspapers. And before I really start with this, I ask you, please, I would like to do a poll and ask people about how do you get your news today. So if you can trigger that for me, Jeff, I will appreciate. And yes, I think I will need to find another picture for this slide, right? This is not the poll that we were thinking about, but always having fun. Come on, I'm hearing you laughing in the background.
Well,
It's funny.
I've got the poll open now, and about 70% have voted, and so just a few more seconds, and I'll share the results here with you.
And it's really funny that you introduced me as the face of MyHeritage, especially when I'm so often in these webinars when people cannot see my face. But yeah, definitely, if you're going to be in Roots Tech, pass by our booth. We're going to be there. I'm going to be there, and more than happy to say hello to you. Now, Jeff, I don't know. I don't see the results. I don't know why.
So
I know why, because I didn't open my audience view.
Okay, can you see it now?
So I see it, and if I read it correctly, 30% of people said they still get from paper, 75% from TV or radio. I will include myself into that group. 33% by phone, and I'm pretty sure that 33% is going to be a little bit surprise with my next slides, and only 6% of the people don't have time to go into the news. So yes, with this, and of course that I had to prepare my presentation in advance, I think I need to get back to my screen, Jeff, or how do exactly, that's my poll. Okay, so I thought that a lot of you will be getting or more people will be getting your news from the phone. And the reason why I'm using the phone for that is because it's in our phones where we normally check social media. And today, most of our news, and a lot of fake news, I have to admit, are coming in social media. And then, of course, TV and radio, as we already proved it. And very few people probably are still using old paper and newspapers to get their news today. But this session is not about us. It's about our ancestors and how we can find them in the newspapers. Well, before we can think of finding them on the newspapers, we need to take into account historically a little bit of what was the times when our ancestors were living. Because for most of them, there was no phone, definitely not smartphones. They didn't have social media, they didn't have TV, they didn't have radio. So in order to understand this better, let me take you back into the good old days of our ancestors. So I'm going to bring you back in time thanks to some technology that MyHeritage has, and remind you that newspapers are available and actually started from the early 1400s when Johann Gutenberg decided to invent and create this press to make books for people that actually didn't know how to read. Yeah, good luck with that. That doesn't seem like a good business, but you know, he succeeded. He started with the Bible. We all know the story, but later he used it and other people used it also for printing flyers and eventually newspapers. Of course, we still have the problem of teaching people how to read and people how to write. Now, still, this was, although faster, it was not available at every place. So, believe it or not, our ancestors gather around these poles, and I will say mostly in Europe, in order to get their news. According to The Guardian newspaper in England, the world's oldest newspaper is the Wiener Zeitung, a Vienna-based daily newspaper which was first published in 1703. Now, I did a little bit more of research just to make sure I have my sources correct, and this is what also newspapers should be doing. And I found that according to Wikipedia, the first newspaper is not from the 1700s, but from the 1600s, still in the German area or the German Empire in Strasbourg. This name I'm not going to pronounce. But even if it was 1600s or 1700s, we're talking about way, way back in time. We're talking about public newspapers that are published in these public polls. So people were not paying in order to get their news. And another reason why gathering around these polls is because whoever still didn't know how to read was able to meet one or two people probably in the town that were the first ones with those capabilities and hear them reading the news. Now, still, these news are not traveling to any place. They are just arriving to the town or to the city and being published. For traveling news, we will need to wait until 1860. And I'm focusing now in the US when a company called the Pony Express started delivering messages from east to west and from west to east. and it rely on a series of people and horses and passing written messages one through the other. Now, those messages were not secret. They were not sealed in envelopes. They just were pieces of paper with some written information on it. And every couple of miles or kilometers, those guys and the horses were tired. They had to stop. They gave the paper to the next rider. And what those guys did? They hit the canteen. And of course, then when we're there at the bar, they, well, told a little bit of probably secrets or news or things that were in those letters or notifications going back and forth. And one guy heard it from another and another from another, but probably by the time it got to the ears of everybody in town, those were already old news. So now you know also where that terms comes to it. Now, technology kept trying to speed the communication process. And I'm sure we all have heard about Alexander Graham Bell with his patent of a phone in 1876. I don't know how many of you know, definitely I didn't, that Philip Rice was actually the first person to build a phone in 1861. And this really speed the communication process, especially just a few years after that, when telephone switches were created in order to connect the different phone in the different places. And well, I don't want to admit it, but maybe those operators stayed in the line and heard a little bit of the news. Yeah, by now we're calling them gossips. And that was another way also of spreading the news. But definitely the best way, especially for family history, and this is backed up by the New York Times in one of his articles from 2020, newspapers, printed newspapers, historical newspapers are the best way to get information about our ancestors. And that is why so many are being digitized around the world. And if you're waiting for me to tell you that there are more and more newspapers available every day, including on MyHeritage, yes, this is part of the good news that I have for you today. But first, let's agree that the newspapers are every genealogist's dream, because right there you will be able to find your family secrets. And this is the time for the second poll that I have for you. I would like to know what you think you can find in those newspapers. So Jeff, if you can trigger that one, and yes, probably these are not the polls that we're talking about, right? Oh my God, I will need a little bit of help here from my design team. So please tell me, uh, are you looking for your family history? Pretty sure you are. Animals, novels, none of all, or all of the above.
Okay, looks like almost all of you have voted, so I'll close this now and share these results with Daniel and with all of you.
Please
There you
do.
go, Daniel.
Go, Daniel. Go, Daniel. So, yes, definitely half of you are at least expecting to find your family history there, and I will point you out how to get that. 14% animals and 15% novels. Well, you are for a surprise here. 2% none of the above, because the other half, almost half, thinks that yes, you will actually find all of the above and even more than that. But before we go into the what, maybe I should go into the how. And I'm going to share a secret with you on how do I read newspapers, and that is whenever I manage to get one on my hand. The first thing I do with the newspaper, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you also do this, I turn it to the back of the newspaper, okay? And then I open it from right to left. Now, I know many of you out there are probably thinking, well, that seems logic because Daniel is in Israel. Over there, they speak Hebrew. Hebrew is written right to left. So probably that will be the right way of reading a newspaper. But no, it's not because of the language. It's not because I'm in Israel. Is because right here in the very last page is where you're going to find obituaries. Now, obituaries are sad and are not so good news unless you're not that close to the person and you are a genealogist, because the obituary will have a wealth of information. I'm not talking only about the first name and the last name of the person, the birth, date, and place, the death, birth, and place, also probably a story and some history about the person, where the person is going to be buried, and if this will be in a newspaper, chances are you will find more than one obituary for the individual, because close family wants to pay their respects with obituary. Companies, depending if the person was working or volunteering for that company, may put an announcement out there, and all kind of other people are going to be identified with this obituary. If we're talking about digital obituaries, well, those are even better, because people can react and add notes. So you will be seeing everybody sharing their thoughts about this person, and you will be able to understand how they are related to this individual. So yes, obituaries are good news for us genealogists. Now, another thing you will find there is funeral notes. And this is something I was not so aware of until I found this one in the Trinidad Guardian, July 15, 1944. This is not like an obituary, it's more like a news of somebody passing away and having a funeral. In this case, a famous doctor's wife in Trinidad. And the reason that I became familiar with this article is because among the people mentioned in this procession for the funeral, Mr. and Mrs. H. Horowitz are mentioned over there. Now, yes, you probably don't know that Hersch Horowitz was my grandfather. He was living in Trinidad by 1944. So this is a mention of my very much alive grandfather in this newspaper. So another good news. But not only bad news, not only obituaries and death, also all kind of ceremonial events. And I'm talking about birth, communions, graduations, engagements, weddings, anniversaries. Let me tell you why. And today we don't do that anymore. If you're still back in time with me, This is the only way for people to announce to the rest of the city or the town what is happening, who is having birth, who is having graduations, who is having communions. And you can see on the dates of the pages of the articles here, we're talking about early 1900s, but this goes way back. And the way back we go, the more of these types of announcements we find. Now, again, not only happy events, we may have, well, yeah, probably those are happy events for some of people, anyhow. Divorce notices, and not only a note, but the whole reason for the divorce, the whole article, the whole gossip for divorces, as I found here on the Clinton Daily item in 1909. Now, I took the chance to copy and paste the text, or at least part of the text from this newspaper. The reason for that is because I wanted you to try to read it and realize that although you can read it and understand it, is not quite how it should be written. So let me correct that. Okay, much better. Now, beside knowing that the reason for the divorce is the consequence of habitual drunkenness, cruelty, crimes not justified, but for the grounds of the divorce, and yada, 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 I wanted to start bringing to you the technology and the way that those old newspapers are being digitized and making available to you. First of all, this is done with a technology called OCR, which is not perfect as I just demonstrated. And you will notice that the highlighted words are actually the words that I search for in order to find those newspapers. Let's keep traveling back and forth through the articles, and you can see that people in the 1800s also announced the travels that they were doing, either the places where they were going, the places where they arrived, or the places that they were leaving. Now, today, with social media and everything being instantaneously, I hesitate a lot posting when I am traveling. Because, if everybody knows that I am on the road, in the majority of the cases, not in mine, that means the house is empty and alone. That's not good news. Or, well, there is, but for the other not so good people. But in these times, it was important for people to know who was traveling. And most of the people that actually travel, we need to remember this, is people that had the means for paid for these travels. So here you have names and relationships, not only the names of those traveling, but also who they were coming to visit or going, where they reside or where they were traveling, the dates of the travel, the origins and the destinations. A lot of useful information, especially if your family was one of the hosting people or the traveling guys. And of course, newspapers had to be maintained in one way, and advertisements was one of the ways. And you could find all kind of strange or useful advertisements. In this case, well, you have cigars, you have games, you have toys, or you have just an advertising on somebody looking for a person that was last seen or known as from the Lexington Street from Charleston, not New York, Charleston, Massachusetts in 1894. Okay, so yes, newspapers just announce missing individuals and people trying to connect with other family members. Where did I heard that before? Now, talking about advertisements and back to my own personal story, you can see that almost half of the newspaper page here is full of advertising. And if you're paying attention, you will notice that H. Horowitz, remember, and this is in Trinidad, is an expert jeweler having his store in Trinidad, selling watches and cutlery and cosmetics and perfumery and having very good prices. So yes, this is the store of my grandfather in Trinidad. But that was not the only one people advertised on newspapers. Also animals, horses, ducks, geese, or pigeons, all kind of animals were also advertised and made the highlight of the newspapers. I wonder how many animals we will find in today's newspapers. Well, at least from the um, um, from the animal kingdom, I am referring. Of course, sales, finance, even debts were announced in the newspapers. Today, yes, if you want to sell or buy something, definitely you will go to the newspaper, especially if you're talking about like a store, land, or a house. But can you imagine if you own money that suddenly you will find your name on the newspaper? And this is the time where I think that my family, if they own money, that was good news for me because I was able to find them in the newspaper. So, in summary, what else you can find in the newspapers? Well, one word will very good summarize it. Everything or anything. Whatever you think, whatever you never thought about, newspapers had everything. So now the question is, where can I find those newspapers? And I have still seen a few kiosks like this in the streets of some cities out there. I'm also very familiar with those vending machines where you can put a quarter and then you pull. Well, sometimes we used to do a dime also, but then you can pull one or many, you shouldn't take many, just only one newspaper from the machine until they finish. And if they finish, then you are in troubles because you will never be able to get your news. And then the good news is that newspapers are digitized and are digitizing their own collection. So there are a lot of organizations involved in this process. First of all, their own newspapers companies, like New York Times is digitizing their collections, the Boston Globe, I don't know, the Guardian, any big newspaper out there is working, digitizing their newspapers, and you can find them, most of them, just by going into Google. Regular Google will give you the answer. Google has a special page for newspapers. By the way, newspapers today will already be digitized even before they go to print. So you can find in their websites their news. But they are not the only ones. And also newspapers that are not being published today are being digitized. And for a more extended list of newspapers online or digitized or archived from all over the world, by the way, I suggest you to go to Wikipedia. Well, this is kind of the knowledge of the crowd and may not be 100% accurate, but so far very, very useful and straight to the point. But as I said, this is not the only way you can find newspapers. The International Coalition of Newspapers, or ICON, also has a lot of newspapers, and it will tell you and guide you to other organizations like the American Antiquarian Society, the New York Public Library, the University of Washington, the Library of Congress. All those are also digitizing and having access to newspapers. Library of Congress is one that will give you access right through your home. You don't need a library card to access the Library of Congress. You may need one to access your own local library that may or may not have digitized newspapers over there. Chronicling America is a huge collection from old historical newspapers, which, by the way, MyHeritage also shares it and have some advantages by presenting it to you. If you're looking more like an up-to-date newspaper, kiosco, which is the Spanish word for kiosk, will also give you, but only the most current newspaper. And if you are searching for newspapers from the UK, the National Archive over there have a whole series of online newspapers collection. Some of them will require the paid subscription, otherwise will be freely available. If you are at the archives, if you're traveling to Kew Gardens, to London, or you live there, or you have any friends there, you can access all those free of charge there. Also, there is an organization called Europeana that has newspapers from all kinds of parts of Europe. So if you're looking for your ancestors over there, this is the place, and you can find them just by typing any name or last name and selecting the country or the places where you want to search. If you have family or relatives here in Israel or Jewish in other parts of the country, the Israeli National Library has also a good project and a good collection of Jewish newspapers from almost around the world. But because nobody can keep track of everything, I have a few good friends. One of them, the Ancestor Hunt, or Kenneth Marks, which has a page and keeps me updated with newspapers that are coming out from the United States, Canada, or even the rest of the world. Also, Miriam Robbins has a website divided by different areas, normally English, and Spanish-speaking countries, that publishes newspapers. And of course, I have to mention MyHeritage. MyHeritage also has its own collection of historical newspapers. So now, if you give me just 2 minutes, and just because I don't know how many of you are familiar with MyHeritage, the company I work for very happily since 2006, it's trying or helping you connect your past, your present, and your future. And definitely the newspaper is one way to connect you with your past. But we started as a company that allows you to build your family trees. Currently, we have 54 million of those in our database. And even if you have a family tree someplace else, I will strongly suggest you to upload a JetCom and enjoy the technologies that we have for family trees for free. It doesn't matter how big your tree is, it will go up with no problem. We have 19.6 billion historical records, and yes, here is where the newspapers come, and that number is just fresh out of the oven. So I can tell you, we had 19.5, now we have 19.6, and we keep working hard to bring you more records. But also, we have DNA kits for genealogy testing. Currently 7.4 million of those, and I'm pretty sure that number will grow very fast after the good prices and sales that we had this past weekend, and probably we will have for the holidays. Now, I have very good news for you if you did a DNA test in another company, but you will need to wait a little bit more for that. You should know that MyHeritage is available and understand 42 languages, which actually means that anybody around the world is using MyHeritage in their own languages to have research their family. So this is just one thing that makes us different from the other companies out there. I will show you a little bit today about our superior technology just by having this webinar free and available to everybody, demonstrate how friendly and approachable we try to be. And if we're not doing a good job, please let us know. And the exclusive databases that include the newspaper collection. So without further ado, let's go straight to the search engine. And here, I want to give you all the guidance to find your family over there. So under research, you will notice that the newspapers has a very special place in our menu, also in our hearts, of course. Now, not only there, but below where we have divided all the records by categories, you can scroll to the side until you see the newspapers collections over there. And you can see the huge amount of records that we have available for you. And it's from here where you're going to get to that page that I showed you before. This is the general page to search the newspaper collections, and this will search over all the newspapers at once. But before we do that, let me go a little bit down just to show you that we do have a lot of newspapers, not only from the US, not only from Canada, not only from Australia, but also from France and other countries. So yes, MyHeritage is not only looking for or to help people internationally, is also looking to give you newspapers from around the world. And clicking here, you will be able to view all the newspapers that we have for you. But before that, let me go back to the menu because I want to bring your attention to the second option, which is the collection catalog. And here is the place where you will be kept up to date with the latest collections and releases that we are doing. Now, in this case, I have it filtered and sorted by the number of records, and you can immediately spot that our second biggest collection is the newspaper name index from US, Canada, and Australia. And this is a collection that is being updated with images constantly. Now, here you will be able to select only the newspapers collection, and you can see that we have 104 different collections from different places around the world. And yes, when we say around the world, is from every corner of the country, of the I'm sorry, of the world. But first, you could just search for any city or place, or you could refine first by continent or by big areas. We have Canada and the US separately, and then Europe or Oceania. And over there, you will be able to filter even more by the different countries in those continents. But my suggestion is always to start here and start broader with the more amount of results possible, because you really never know where your relative is going to pop up from the newspapers. And as any good genealogist, I'm going to fill the first name and the last name with my own name, because I want to know how famous I am and in how many newspapers I appear. And here, I'm going to give you a ride behind the scenes and a little bit on the technology that we're using, because definitely it is a challenge to find any individual, in this case, Daniel Horowitz, even when the newspaper may have written it in different ways. It could be Horowitz Daniel. It could be Horowitz middle name. I'm sorry, Daniel middle name Horowitz, or Mr. Horowitz D. They may include the occupation or the title, or maybe more than one person with the same last name, or maybe they have more words between the first and the last name. Okay, so you need to understand that here, and I'm going to reveal a secret, AI, something you have already heard a lot lately, artificial intelligence, goes over the newspapers, over the articles, and decide if this is really your person or not. And well, you can see that I have luck and good news, because MyHeritage was able to find at least a Daniel Horowitz in a lot of newspapers. But it's also giving me option to add more details. And I know a lot of you know for sure that your relatives appeared in the New York Times, or in the Washington Post, or in any other obscure newspaper like the Hendersonville in Henderson's County, North Carolina, United States. Well, that is possible, and you could add over there the publication title, the date, the place, or, and this is probably the best, any keywords that you would like. Remember the samples that I was showing to you before? Well, yeah, or right there, I just wrote birthdays, anniversaries, engagements, and I found them in the newspapers, because the newspapers are digitized completely, not only what our family is, where our family is mentioned. You can see on the left side that we give you the amount of results per newspapers, and obviously bigger newspapers will have more results. Newspapers that have been published for more time are going to have more results. So it's up to you to select and filter your preferences. And then you can click on any item to see the article big. And no, I didn't make a mistake putting the arrow there. The location of the arrow is just for me to remind you that you can click in any of the white area and we will bring you to the article itself. Now, we don't expect you to read the whole article, especially if it's an old one, especially if it has very small letters, although you could zoom in. But MyHeritage is going to try to look for the place where that name was located, and you can see a little bit of the article right here on the top. So now you know where I copy and paste the paragraph from that divorce that we saw before. And hopefully you will identify fast enough where the name of the person is, and you will be able to zoom in. Now you can see that the article is way bigger than just this paragraph. So if you scroll down, you will notice that we have pasted here the OCR text from the whole page, which means, again, we don't expect you to read the whole thing, especially because you're going to have mistakes over there. But this is a great tip that I have for you. At least on Windows, and I'm pretty sure that there's also a similar way to do it in a Mac, you can do Control F, and that is a general search on that page. And when you use, in this case, the name of the person, Horowitz in my case, the OCR or the results from this search is going to point me to the exact place in the OCR text, which will give me the whole article. Oh, where are my manners? OCR stands for optical character recognition. And it's no other thing than teaching the computer how the letters look and being able to make the computer translate that image, because at the end of the day, this is the image of the newspaper page, into text. Something you can copy, paste, and move to other places, even edit or extract whenever you want. Okay, so OCR has its challenges, especially and not only in English. For example, capital letters can be confused with other letters or even numbers. So a capital G, for example, it could be read as a 6 or even an 8, not talking about the B, that could be an R or a 6 or an 8, or even lower letters. An L suddenly converts into an M, and by the way, the other way around. So you see that it's not that easy for the computer to understand. So it's not only the fact that we read the words, we also need to check that there are not punctuations in the middle of the word, that there are no numbers in the middle of the word that will definitely make almost impossible because nobody writes it that way. Okay, so back here, you can copy and paste the OCR text, but because we are good genealogists, and I hope you are, we also have here the source citation of this article that you can also copy and paste in your research. So it's not only downloading the image, it's not only copying the text from the article, it's also copying and having the source citation. Where did you found this article? And you could do this all manually, or you can rely on MyHeritage especially and only if you have a family tree on MyHeritage. Now you understand why I said before that I strongly encourage you to have a family tree there, because MyHeritage is going to offer you the possibility to copy all this to any person in your family. And because this is talking about myself, I'm going to look for Horowitz D or Daniel. While I type the name, MyHeritage is going to look into my family tree, is going to bring me the possible candidates. I just need to click on any of those names and find the right person and say, yes, this is the person that I want to save the information. You click on the button, you will see side by side my tree with the information and the information coming from the newspaper. Now, this is what we do for any regular record that we have. And we even go the extra mile because with regular records, we will be able to extract the different facts that are in the records. Well, with newspapers is a little bit of a problem because we don't know exactly what pieces of information you want to extract. I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. So what we're copying here is the source citation, and we're creating a connection, a link between your family tree, between the individual in the tree and the article in that page. So normally I will tell you save to tree, but hold on, I found a better way to do that. Let me share it with you. When you click here, like if you will be needing more information and editing the full profile, it's going to ask me if I want to save or not the changes. So far, the change is just adding the source citation. So I'm going to say yes. And even before I go away from this page, I'm going to remind you that you should have copied the text of the article from the OCR area. Because when you say yes, or even if you say no, we're going to bring you to this page, which is probably for some of you totally new. It's an obscure page where we have divided more deep facts about each individual in your family. In this case, well, it says about me because it's talking about me, but if this will be the profile of my father, I'm actually looking for an area called biography, which is the third one below family right there. Do you see it? Good, because I didn't highlight it for you. Bad boy. And here, you're actually able to paste any notes that you have copied from the OCR article. All you need to do is just either to add another note if you have more than one article, and at any time just click the save and close or save and continue. So if it was not clear for you till now, newspapers are not structured, are just a narrative of the stories and events of our families. Normally is printed, which is very good, and in some cases will even have pictures for us. On the other side, we have our regular records, like birth, marriage, and death, for example. They're very structured. We know exactly which page, which part is the first name, the last name, the age, or any other fact, or little pieces of information that will know where they fit in your family tree. Normally, they don't have photos or pictures. Sometimes they do have. And most of the times we're talking about terribly handwritten. Now, because MyHeritage is an international company, we recognize the need of finding your relatives in non-Latin languages. I'm pretty sure you can all deal with English, French, and German, but I don't know how many of you are fluent in Hebrew, Russian, Ukrainian, Greek, places that uses a totally different dictionary of characters. So if you're doing a search in one language, you are going to miss all that information about your relatives that were published in newspapers in other languages. Well, that was until MyHeritage developed this technology called the global name translation that will allow you to search and to use any Latin character names and find them in non-Latin character languages. How does it work? Very easy. You go to the search engine, you type whatever name you're looking for. MyHeritage will bring you results in all kind of languages. And whenever we show you a result in another language, we will back translate it to you so you will know at least the name of the person and know if this is really your person or not. Now, this works not only for manual searches, this also works with a technology called record matches. And yes, you will get record matches also with our newspapers collection. So if we find your relative in the newspapers, we will be matching your tree to the newspapers. We will understand if this is relevant information. If we're talking about obituaries, weddings, graduations, all the genealogical important information that we know appear in the newspapers, and we will be able to bring you thousands of articles in no time, as my good friend Randy Seaver already said many years ago when he started testing these record matches and newspapers collection. So let me bring you a few examples just for you to notice. This is Willie Jaggerman that was found in the newspaper and funeral home obituaries collection, because we detected and we know that this is only funeral homes and obituaries. MyHeritage is giving me the transcription. MyHeritage is giving me also specific information because, again, the artificial intelligence was able to extract the birth date, the death date, the birthplace, the spouse, the residence, and of course, for you, the story behind this article. By the way, if you have a family tree on MyHeritage, we will let you know with these brown circles that we found a match for you from a record, in this case, a newspaper for Clara Rua, okay, under her maiden name, Mahudi. You can see the highlighted of the name, and you can see that she actually passed away, and she was the mother-in-law and the mother and grandmother and all the information that I may be missing. In another case, MyHeritage brought me this page, and I had to read them all just to find this article that I'm highlighting here. And I also highlighted for you the name of Cora Ramras, which is Cora Harriet Macroff, actually, which is her maiden name. So this article refers to her before the marriage. This is not the marriage of Cora. This is actually referring to the marriage of Cora's sister. And how do I know that? How do I have the right person? Well, because I found the name of the husband here attending the same wedding. So, well, that means that Cora met her husband to be at her sister's wedding. Maybe it will be a very nice and romantic story, right? Especially if Daniel came from the groom part of these weddings. Now, although this technology is very accurate and almost in all the cases perfect, we need to remember that the actual articles may not be perfect. The information there may not be perfect. The reason for that is, well, they were not always submitted by a first or even a second source. So, not the person or a relative from the person is the one telling the news. The writer may have made mistakes while typing it, or the editor had to do some changes because of the space available in the newspaper. Okay, the quality of the paper has a lot to do, especially with the OCR and the style of the print. Sometimes it's really impossible, even for the human eye, to understand and decipher what letters are printed in the newspaper. And then the quality of the digital copy that we can get from that newspaper. And remember, newspapers are being digitized for many, many years already, and probably the first ones were not done with the high quality or the high quality machines that we're using today. Yes, MyHeritage is also using a lot of high quality machines around the world to try to bring you more newspapers as we speak. Now, the important thing, and I already mentioned it that before, but I want to emphasize, and using the advertisement of my grandfather jewelry store in Trinidad, is to extract all the information. And I'm not talking about the obvious, like the name or even the occupation. But from here, I'm gaining the dates. I know that my grandfather was probably in Trinidad still by this date. And not only in Trinidad as a place, but at 58 Frederick Street in Port-au-Prince in Trinidad. I have the phone, and this is an old phone, only 4 digits. And the phone may be helpful in order to find other articles. So instead of looking for Horowitz or for any other world, I'm going to look for 65663. And if I reduce that search for Trinidad, chances are I will find my grandfather family mentioned some other place. Talking about searching tips, and just before we wrap up this, I'm gonna steal some tips for you from my good friends, the Family History Fanatics. No, I didn't steal them. I actually asked for their permission, and they were very happy to share them with me in order for me to share them with you. So whenever you are searching newspapers, you should search for names, and those are both given or surnames, taking into consideration any possible typo or other spelling variation. Although today the technology takes care about that. And then after the name, the event that you are looking for. If you're looking for the birth, the marriage, the shower, bridal, wedding, or anniversary. Now, don't look only for birth. Just expand or enlarge that search for any combination of words: born, birth, engagement, engaged, engaging, and only engage like half of the world. That will give you all the possible articles and the possible notices that you may have from your family. So yes, the good news definitely is that you too can discover your family in old newspapers. If you ask me, very easy, just 1, 2, 3. You register to MyHeritage, you go to the search engine, to the newspaper collection, and hopefully you will be start to discover your family history. And with this, I will make a pause because I'm sure Jeff has very important messages for you while I drink just a cup of water and wait for your questions.
Well, fantastic. Daniel, I was wondering, I wonder how many people out there were on their other monitor with you kind of in the background searching at MyHeritage in the newspaper collections. I've been really enjoying my time doing that, and I've listened to you as well. And thanks for all those links of the various newspaper sites. I put those in the chat for everybody, and we'll have the chat log. We'll publish that online as well. So yeah, let's switch over here. We'll do some door prizes and get back to Daniel with your questions. So the replay of this will end up right here up at familytreewebinars.com/myheritage. And the replay of this class today will be free. And while you're there, it looks like today is webinar number 300 and it's either 7 or 9 of the MyHeritage specific classes. So feel free to browse through there and see what you might want to learn about. And then coming up, we're going to learn in our next MyHeritage webinar about the latest developments in searching historical records on MyHeritage by Maya Geyer. So be sure to sign up for that. And let's go ahead and do some door prizes. And the first thing that I'm looking at here is, Daniel, I didn't get my 19 billion updated yet, so that's 19.6 billion if I remember correctly. So the complete plan gives you access to everything, all the tree stuff, the DNA stuff, I think the photo stuff, and all the records that are up there, including newspapers. So it's a pretty darn good resource to use. So let's go and find our winner. All you have to do is be here, and that's what makes you eligible to win. So first winner here looks like James Link. Congrats to you, James. Just watch for an email from me today. And let's next go, and we're going to give away a MyHeritage DNA test kit. And this will go out to Catherine Ramon. So Catherine, I hope it's fun to hear your name on the air. And then, yeah, let's return over to Daniel for some questions. Daniel, are you ready for some questions?
I'm ready. Bring them on.
Right. And you're welcome, James, who says thanks for the door prize. Eleanor, first of all, asking about the various languages, wondering if it translates in Welsh. And what I did, Daniel, is, let me pull up my screen here. I just went up to the top. Tell me if I'm doing this right. I went up to the top right, and I clicked on English. And that's
no need to do that.
I don't even need to do. I just wanted to see if Wales or Welsh was one of the languages, but yeah.
No, those are the 42 languages that MyHeritage is available in.
Okay.
Okay. So you will keep browsing in English without any problem.
Okay.
When you search for any records, or when we bring you the matches, which is the page where you are at the moment, we will automatically apply that global translation technology.
Okay.
So you really don't need to do anything
Yeah.
to start enjoying it.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. You know, Daniel, while you were speaking, this is what I was doing, and I just want to show just a quick tip. I was instead of going to research in the newspapers, well, I did that at first, and of course I typed in my name and a few of my ancestors' names, but then I went over to discoveries and then matches by source, and I just kind of scrolled through here to see if newspapers it was one of the titles, and here's one, and you can see that of my tree it found 28 matches in those newspapers. And I scrolled down a little bit more. Here's the Chronicling America that you taught us about, and I've got 14 matches in my tree in that collection, and so I've just been browsing around, and here's my great grandmother talking about them. She filed their marriage certificates, and I can click here to review that match, and so that was just another.
Wait.
Okay.
Go back a little bit. I'm happy to know that I'm not the only lazy genealogist that instead of searching goes to the record matches.
Okay.
But I want to use this example to point out
Good.
how deep the technology works.
Okay.
This is a match for Agnes.
Yes.
Agnes Park. But we also highlighted the name Edward.
Ah.
And the reason for that is because Edward was or is Agnes' husband.
Yeah, I see that down here. Okay.
Okay. So now if you go further down, you will see in the newspapers that you have more than the name of the person there.
That's
so
awesome.
On Amanda, yeah, we've also find Richard. Richard A. Jeffelston.
Feldstead. It's a tough one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So exactly. So this is how the artificial intelligence makes sure that we bring you only those articles that are relevant to you.
Yeah. Well, that just having those highlighted, it draws my eye to it, and if I'm familiar with the family, then it makes it easier for me to decide if they really are my family. So I had no idea about that. Now I'm just curious as I'm going down through here, and I've researched the Wohlhart family, and here I can see. Oh, very good. Okay, so yeah, Lewis says MyHeritage definitely makes us lazy with their record matches, but I'm thankful for it. It's kind of like it's the low-hanging fruit that I can find some fast discoveries, I suppose. So. Okay,
Yes.
So thanks for those tips, Daniel. I appreciate that. If someone ever finds an OCR error, and this is a question from Nancy, is there a way to report that or comment on that, or any thoughts about that?
So there is kind of a way. Okay, it's an unofficial way.
Okay.
On the records, you can write a comment below the record.
Okay.
Okay, so if you click, for example, yes, review match, we will present you with the record. If you scroll down, keep going. This is the OCR part. Okay. When you search for the actual record, you should see there one option that says write a comment.
Okay.
Okay. And over there, you could say, well, I found that this word was recognized as X, but it should be Y, and do a little bit of feedback. Now, if I have to be honest, and I normally try to be, there is nobody really going to read that feedback. That feedback is not being used as in the regular records where you can provide a feedback that it's useful for the first name or the last name when they were indexed wrongly. Okay. And those are things that we do look into it and we use to add it to our index.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want to be a good person, why not?
So, who is Sandy here is wondering for your advice about limiting the time frame of the search, wondering if that's possible. She says that she's at this point researched
Mhm.
newspapers and we do a search for Ivan Rasmussen and
Okay.
and
And yeah, you can put a date over there. And if you're
so
not sure about the exact date,
let's
okay, just
let's say
put
1900 and match
eh,
exactly or not.
okay.
Okay.
Click Magnet, click 1 second, please. Click on it.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Okay,
there we go.
exactly. So there you can say, well, I'm not sure if it was 1 to 5 years more or less.
Yeah.
And we're going to take that into consideration when we bring you the
Yeah.
results.
Okay. Now that I've typed in my great grandfather, I'm just curious. So I hit the search button and okay. And I
Don't go
suppose like
down that rabbit hole, Jeff. I'm
oh
pretty
yeah.
sure people are still waiting for their
Oh
answers.
yeah, we are live, aren't we? Okay. Thanks, Sandy, for your question. Jane is wondering, so can I save an article and then get the citation, and can I share that elsewhere? Is any of that possible? So let's
Well,
say,
if you have, yes, if you have a family tree on MyHeritage, you can just click over there, save the record, and that will do it.
okay,
If you want to share this article with anybody else, you could take the URL that you have now in the screen, and that will be the unique URL for this page of the newspaper.
oh, okay,
Now, if you go a little bit down where you see the newspaper page itself,
hmm
and you click on the upper right corner to magnify and to see that full page, you will notice that now on the right upper right corner, you have an option to download this page. That's another way of doing it.
yeah,
And you can save this image and use it however you want.
okay. So we
So
just have
plenty
to,
of plenty of ways to save and to share. Uh, that wait, go a
yeah.
little bit
Did you see
down.
what I just saw? Is that what you're looking at?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So this one, it is of the feedback that we are relying on, and this will be only for that name,
Okay.
not for a different part of the OCR.
Okay.
Okay, if you have a feedback on a different part of the OCR, if you close this pop-up window, you see now that it says have comments about this record.
Yeah.
So the page changes a little bit between or is different between a record match and a search result.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Love all these little tiny insights that we get when we just start asking you questions. We just never know what we're going to learn. Let's go and I'm looking. Maria says it's great to hear your voice again.
Thank you, Maria. I know exactly who you are.
All right. It looks like well, there's, yeah, Carol asked about copyright and just wondering if do you know anything about that, Daniel? I know we usually refer to Judy Russell for all questions copyright, but if we've got a
Yeah.
newspaper page here, what can we do with it? Can we print it or include it in our tree or
Well,
in a book or what?
definitely, I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
And Judy is the eminence in
Yeah.
this area. But I can tell you the information in the newspaper is not private, okay? It's public domain. It was published. Now, how to use the information, it's kind of gray, and pretty sure Judy will tell me, no, it's not gray. It's very black and white. But the names of the people cannot be copyrighted. The stories of the people or whatever article is written may be copyrighted by the newspaper.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the newspaper has a declaration of use of the copyrights, what to do, what not to do. I will always source cite where I took the information from, not only because I'm a good genealogist, but because I want to give credit where deserved, and I want to get back to it. But if you're concerned, if you're not sure, yeah, ask a lawyer, ask somebody in the genealogy world that will have some experience on copyright laws. You can try Googling it also and get a more specific answer to your question.
Okay, very well said. Thank you. Well, thanks everyone for your questions and your kind comments here in the chat. We appreciate you also filling out that survey immediately afterwards. Those are very meaningful to us. Daniel, anything else before we say goodbye?
Just thank you and the whole team and everybody else here in the audience, either live or recorded. And you know what? We're close enough that I can wish everybody happy holidays, happy new year, and looking forward to meet with you very soon.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Daniel. Always good to hear from you, and we'll look forward to our next time together. Look forward to seeing you at Roots Tech. Look forward to seeing all of you wherever and whenever you are, anytime here at the MyHeritage webinar series at familytreewebinars.com. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone. Bye, Daniel.
Bye-bye.
Bye.